My sister always got everything, but this time, she took something she should have never touched. Throwaway for obvious reasons. I, F27, always thought I knew my sister, Elena, F32. Beautiful, charming, flawless, everyone adored her. People called her golden because she always seemed perfect. Perfect job, perfect friends, perfect smile. Me, I was quiet, careful, and underestimated. But I had one thing that made me genuinely happy, my fiancé, Mark, M30. Mark and I met at a friend's wedding 2 years ago. He was funny, kind, and somehow saw through the layers I had carefully built to protect myself. While Elena had the ability to charm anyone, Mark never seemed impressed by appearances. He wanted to know the real me. That's why I loved him. Our relationship grew slowly, carefully. Mark had a soft patience that I had never experienced before. We spent nights talking about our fears, our dreams, even the silly what-if scenarios that made us laugh until our ribs hurt. I remember one night, curled up on my tiny apartment couch, Mark brushing a strand of hair from my face, whispering, "I don't care about the apartment, the car, or anything else. I care about you. Just you." It felt unreal. For the first time, I didn't feel like a shadow next to my sister. For the first time, I felt seen. Elena, of course, noticed. She always notices. She started showing up more often when I was with Mark, using excuses like wanting to hang out as sisters, or needing advice about her dating life which, frankly, had always been a mess. At first, I laughed it off. After all, she was my sister. I wanted to trust her. But there was something in the way she looked at Mark, the little lingering glances, the 2 long hugs, that unsettled me. I remember the first time I felt that gnawing suspicion. It was a Saturday afternoon, and we were all at a family brunch. Elena was chatting with Mark, laughing at something I didn't hear. She rested her hand on his arm, a casual gesture, or so it seemed, and looked at him with this sly smile I had only ever seen when she was plotting something. My chest tightened. Get over it, I told myself. He's your fiancé. He's not going to fall for her. I was wrong. A few weeks later, Mark and I were planning a small weekend getaway. I was excited. I hadn't seen him in a few weeks due to his work schedule, and I wanted to surprise him with tickets to a cabin by the lake. That morning, he seemed distracted. Text messages came in every few minutes, and he kept checking his phone. I laughed nervously. Work is stressing you out again? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Yeah, something like that, he muttered. That night, I found out exactly what was going on. I had gone to the kitchen to get us some water and overheard a voice I immediately recognized, Elena's. My stomach dropped. I can't believe this is happening, she said. I didn't even have to try. He's all mine. I froze. My heart pounded. I didn't hear the rest, but it was enough. I knew. Mark had been meeting Elena behind my back. They were seeing each other. My worst fear, the thing I had always suspected but refused to believe, was real. I confronted Mark that night. I still remember the way he looked at me, guilt written across his face, like a mask I had never seen before. Mark, tell me it's not true, I whispered. He swallowed hard. I didn't mean for it to happen, but she. I felt my world collapse. She what? She stole you? I shouted, my voice breaking. He didn't answer. He just looked down, ashamed. The next few days were a blur. I packed my things, stayed with a friend, and tried to process what had happened. Friends told me it wasn't my fault. Family members, well, my parents were divided. My dad shook his head, muttering about Elena's manipulations, while my mom, in her usual way, acted shocked but didn't really intervene. The betrayal cut deeper because it wasn't just Mark, it was Elena, my sister, someone I was supposed to trust. The nights were the worst. I would wake up in cold sweats, replaying everything in my mind. How had I missed the signs? Was I naive? Could I have stopped this? And worst of all, why did I feel like I had failed not as a partner, but as a sister? It was during one of these sleepless nights that I made a decision. Crying, shaking, and feeling like my heart had been ripped from my chest, I whispered to myself, I will rise. I will never let anyone steal my life from me again. I threw myself into work. I had always been passionate about design, graphics, and digital marketing. For years, I had worked small freelance projects, but now, fueled by heartbreak and anger, I decided to take a leap. I started my own online design firm. The first clients were small, almost laughable, but I treated every project like it was life or death. Slowly, carefully, my reputation grew. Meanwhile, I avoided Mark and Elena. Social media posts mocked me. In a way, they flaunted vacations, dinners, and nights out as if I didn't exist. But I didn't look. I didn't care. My focus was myself, and every day I worked harder than the last. Months passed. My business grew faster than I imagined. I hired a small team, took on bigger clients, and finally felt that sense of independence I had craved for years. The pain of losing Mark didn't disappear, but it softened. I realized that the betrayal, as excruciating as it was, had pushed me toward a life I might never have discovered otherwise. Then, one evening, at a business gala, everything changed. I had been nervous, first big networking event, lots of intimidating industry leaders, but I felt ready, confident. And then, I saw him. Alexander, M35, a wealthy entrepreneur with a calm, confident demeanor and a smile that made me feel safe. Unlike Mark, he didn't try to impress with status or charm. He was genuinely interested in who I was. We started talking. At first, it was casual industry trends, new ideas, but soon, he was asking questions about me, my passions, my dreams. I told him about my business, the struggles, the successes. He listened. Really listened. And when he smiled at me that night, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, hope. Little did I know, Elena had noticed my rising success. She had expected me to crumble forever, to fade into obscurity while she enjoyed her victory. But life had other plans. And this was only the beginning. After the betrayal, the first weeks were unbearable. My apartment felt suffocating, each corner a reminder of everything I had lost. I slept in the guest room of a friend's place, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it all. Friends kept texting, checking in, but I didn't have the energy to reply. I felt like I had been erased not just from Mark's life, but from the world I thought I knew. I should have felt anger first, but it didn't come. Instead, it was a hollow emptiness, a quiet realization that everything I had believed about love, trust, and family could not be trusted. Elena's smile haunted me. Mark's gaze haunted me. The thought that they could both be happy together while I felt like my soul had been ripped apart was almost too much to bear. But one night, I woke up and whispered to myself, I will not be defeated by them. I will take back my life. The next morning, I started small. I logged into my computer and revisited my freelance work. What began as a hobby years ago had never been taken seriously, but now it became a lifeline. I poured every ounce of energy, every fragment of heartbreak, into creating something I could control, something I could call mine. At first, it was just me. Late nights hunched over my laptop, scrolling through design tutorials, figuring out marketing strategies, and pitching my services to small businesses. Every email I sent felt like a victory, and slowly, replies came. Small projects turned into steady clients turned into referrals, and suddenly I was building something real. Something that couldn't be taken from me. Meanwhile, Elena and Mark were still in my orbit, though I avoided them intentionally. Their social media was full of vacations, brunches, and perfect couple selfies. Every post was like a dagger, but I refused to engage. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of knowing I was watching. I focused on my growth, my independence, and my sanity. Therapy became another cornerstone of my recovery. I had avoided it for years, partly because I didn't have coverage and partly because I was afraid of digging too deep. But now, with the betrayal fresh and raw, I found a therapist who helped me untangle the mess Elena had left behind, not just with Mark, but with my lifelong habit of undervaluing myself. Sessions became my sanctuary. I learned to recognize toxic patterns, set boundaries, and most importantly, believe that I was worthy of love that was real. It was around this time that I met Anna, a former colleague who became my mentor. She had built a successful design agency from scratch and offered to help me navigate the complexities of running a business. Anna became the person I leaned on when I doubted myself, offering tough love when I wanted to collapse and encouragement when I felt ready to quit. Months passed, and the business began to thrive. I hired my first employee, a young designer who reminded me of myself, passionate but unsure. Teaching and mentoring her gave me a sense of purpose I hadn't realized I was missing. I was finally becoming someone I could respect, someone who didn't need anyone else's validation. Then came the unexpected moment that changed everything, a business gala where Alexander would enter my life. I had been invited as part of a networking opportunity. I expected industry veterans, potential clients, maybe a few journalists. What I didn't expect was Alexander, tall, impeccably dressed, with an aura that commanded attention without effort. We met by chance, both reaching for the same hors d'oeuvre, and our laughter broke the ice immediately. Unlike Mark, Alexander wasn't trying to impress me. He asked about my work, my vision, and even my failures. He listened with genuine curiosity, nodding and asking thoughtful questions. And when he smiled at me, it wasn't condescending or flirtatious, it was the kind of smile that made you feel safe, like someone could see the real you and still want to stay. Over the next few weeks, we ran into each other at industry events and coffee shops. Our conversations grew longer, our laughter louder, and gradually, I realized I was enjoying someone's company again without fear or suspicion. Alexander's presence was calming, like a lighthouse in the storm Elena had created. Of course, word traveled fast. Elena somehow found out about my interactions with Alexander. I don't know how, but one evening I received a text that simply read, "Enjoying your little new friend? Remember, people like us always get what we want." For a moment, my old insecurities flared. But then I remembered the person I had become. I didn't respond. I didn't let her see that she still had any power over me. I focused on Alexander, on my business, and on the life I was building, one that Elena could never touch. Then came the day that tested everything, a mutual friend's birthday party. Elena and Mark were there. I considered skipping it, but I realized this was a chance to face them on my own terms. I arrived alone, confident, with Alexander by my side, but I kept my distance until it was time. When Elena saw me, her smile faltered. She looked at me as if she expected to see the same timid, broken girl she had left behind. She didn't. I had grown, radiated confidence, and it was impossible to ignore. Mark, on the other hand, looked guilty. His eyes darted away when I glanced at him, and I could feel his unease. Alexander stayed by my side, calm and observant. When Elena tried her usual manipulations, flirty smiles, subtle digs, I remained composed, speaking politely but firmly. My presence, my poise, and Alexander's subtle protective support created an invisible wall around me that neither of them could penetrate. The party ended with an unexpected twist. One of our mutual friends pulled me aside, whispering, "You've changed. Elena underestimated you, and Mark looks unsettled." I smiled politely, realizing that my life was no longer theirs to control. That night, as Alexander and I walked home, he held my hand and said something I'll never forget: "You don't need anyone's approval. You've built this life yourself, and anyone who doubts you isn't worth your time." For the first time in months, I truly believed it. I was no longer the sister in the shadows. I was a woman who had faced betrayal, heartbreak, and manipulation and had emerged stronger, smarter, and more capable than I had ever imagined. Elena, Mark, and their petty games were no longer my concern. My focus was on growth, love that was genuine, and a future I could control. But life, as always, had more twists in store. Alexander's interest wasn't just personal, he began offering opportunities for collaboration, merging our professional and personal worlds. I realized that while I had been surviving, I was also building a life so rich and fulfilling that the past couldn't touch me. And deep down, I knew one thing for certain: Elena might have stolen Mark, but she had no idea how much she had underestimated me and how brightly my life could shine once I stopped letting her shadows loom over me. If someone told me 2 years ago that I'd be running a successful design agency and living the kind of life I used to dream about, I'd have laughed. Back then, I was heartbroken, sleepless, and lost. But pain has a strange way of pushing you toward your purpose. After the night of that birthday party, where I stood face to face with Elena and Mark again, something inside me shifted permanently. I realized that their betrayal had stopped defining me. I wasn't the sister who got dumped anymore. I was me, whole, independent, and building something that was truly mine. My business took off faster than I could have imagined. With Alexander's help, not financially, but through his mentorship and network, I started landing high-profile clients. He never once tried to take control of what I built. Instead, he believed in me, supported me. That was new. Our partnership turned into friendship, and that friendship slowly deepened into something that felt natural, peaceful, and real. It wasn't the fast-burning, dizzying kind of love I had with Mark. It was steady and genuine, a kind of connection that made you feel safe without losing the spark. But of course, the universe has a cruel sense of timing. It started with an email. A corporate event organizer reached out, asking if I could handle the branding and stage design for a major charity gala. It was my biggest project, yet the kind that could elevate my business to national recognition. I was ecstatic. Until I saw the name of the event host, Mark and Elena Bennett. I remember staring at the screen, heart pounding, fingers trembling. My sister had married him. She had actually gone through with it, and now, fate wanted to place me right in their orbit again. Every part of me wanted to decline. I could have easily turned it down, used my packed schedule as an excuse. But deep inside, a quiet voice whispered, "You're not the same woman anymore. Show them that." So, I accepted. The weeks leading up to the event were intense. I threw myself into work, determined to make this my best project yet. My team was excited, unaware of the personal storm behind my professional calm. Alexander noticed the subtle tension, of course. He always did. "You don't have to prove anything to them," he said one evening as we reviewed sketches at his office. I sighed. "I know. But I'm not doing this for them. I'm doing it for me. I want to walk into that room and know I built something incredible without their help or their destruction." He nodded, then smiled, that quiet, understanding smile that always made me melt a little. "Then I'll be there that night. Not as your partner or mentor, just as someone who's proud of you." The night of the event arrived faster than I expected. The venue was stunning, a glass-domed ballroom overlooking the city lights. My designs were everywhere, elegant banners, golden lighting that cast a warm glow, floral centerpieces that reflected the theme of new beginnings. The guests were already trickling in, complimenting the decor, and my team buzzed with excitement. And then they walked in. Elena looked exactly as I expected, flawless, dressed in a shimmering gown that probably cost more than my monthly rent back in the day. Mark stood beside her, wearing that same carefully rehearsed smile I once loved. But when his eyes met mine, his expression faltered. Elena's didn't. Hers hardened, just for a second, before morphing into that sugary smile she used to manipulate everyone around her. Well, she said, approaching me with her champagne glass raised. "Look who's here. I heard you were handling the designs for tonight. I must say it looks lovely." "Thank you," I said, steady and calm. "I'm glad you like it." She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "I didn't think you'd still be in the industry, honestly. After everything." Her tone was light, but the barb was sharp. I met her gaze evenly. "I didn't think you'd still be pretending everything's perfect," I replied softly. For a moment, her expression cracked. Mark glanced between us nervously, clearly uncomfortable. I didn't stay to watch them. I walked away, leaving Elena standing there with her fake smile frozen mid-expression. The rest of the night went smoothly, but one thing stood out: whispers. People noticed the tension between us. Some guests, mutual friends from our past, even approached me to congratulate me on how well I was doing. I caught more than a few people glancing at Elena with thinly veiled curiosity, as if realizing she wasn't the only golden one anymore. After the event ended, I slipped outside for a moment of air. The cool night breeze hit my face, grounding me. And then, Alexander appeared beside me. "You did it," he said, smiling. I turned to him. "It's strange. I thought seeing them would break me again, but it didn't. I just felt nothing." "That's growth," he said quietly. He took my hand then, gently but firmly, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "I'm proud of you, Maya." For the first time, I didn't flinch at affection. I let him hold my hand, let myself feel the comfort of someone who wanted nothing from me except honesty. But the story didn't end there. A week later, I received an unexpected visitor at my office. Elena. She walked in unannounced, wearing oversized sunglasses and her usual designer outfit. My receptionist looked startled, but I gestured for her to let her through. "Wow," Elena said, looking around. "You've really done well for yourself. What do you want, Elena?" I asked, not in the mood for small talk. She hesitated, which was unusual for her. "Things aren't as perfect as they look," she admitted softly. I raised an eyebrow. "You don't say." Her eyes darted toward the window. "Mark's business is struggling. He made some bad investments. And honestly," she paused, her voice dropping. "He's not who I thought he was." I almost laughed. The irony was too perfect. "You mean the man who cheated on his fiancé with her sister isn't trustworthy?" Shocking. "Maya, please," she said sharply. "I didn't come here for a lecture. I just thought that maybe I'd feel sorry for you." I interrupted. "That I'd forget how you humiliated me and stabbed me in the back." "No, Elena. I don't hate you. But I don't pity you either." Her lip trembled slightly. For a brief moment, she looked vulnerable, almost human. "I made mistakes," she whispered. "I thought I wanted what you had, but I was just jealous." I took a deep breath. For years, I had imagined this conversation. I thought I'd feel satisfaction seeing her regret. But instead, I just felt tired. "Elena," I said quietly, "you've spent your whole life chasing attention. You took what was mine because you thought it would make you happy. It didn't. Maybe now you'll learn that happiness doesn't come from stealing someone else's light." She looked at me, eyes glistening, then turned and walked away without another word. That night, I sat on my balcony, watching the city lights below. Alexander joined me, handing me a cup of tea. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded slowly. "For the first time, I think I am." She finally saw who I've become. And honestly, I think that's the real victory. He smiled. You've built everything yourself, Maya. And you deserve every bit of it. Then, almost shyly, he added, you know, there's something I've been wanting to say. I looked at him curiously. He hesitated, then said, I didn't plan on falling for you. But I did. You're the strongest, kindest woman I've ever met. And if you'll let me, I want to be part of your story, not to rescue you, but to walk beside you. My chest tightened. Tears threatened to spill, but this time, they weren't from pain. They were from peace. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to smile, a real one. Then walk with me, I whispered. He took my hand again, and under the quiet city night, it felt like the universe had finally balanced its scales. When I woke up the next morning after my talk with Elena, I felt lighter than I had in years. For the first time, her voice wasn't echoing in my head. The anger, the resentment, the constant need to prove myself gone. It felt like closing a book I'd been forced to read too many times. The following months passed quietly. My business continued to grow, and word about the gala spread fast. I was suddenly being invited to conferences, networking events, and even featured in a local magazine as one of the top women entrepreneurs under 30. The recognition was surreal, but more than that, I felt proud that I'd built something that was entirely mine. Alexander was by my side through it all. We hadn't rushed anything. Despite the feelings between us, we took it slow, healing separately, learning to trust love again. I admired that about him. He wasn't trying to fill the cracks in my heart. He was helping me build something stronger over them. One evening, as we were preparing for a client meeting, he looked up from his laptop and said, you know, it's funny how everything in your life connects. If you hadn't been betrayed, maybe none of this would have happened. I smiled. You mean if my sister hadn't stolen my fiancé, I wouldn't have started this business or met you? He grinned. Exactly. It was true. My heartbreak had become the very reason I found my strength. But life wasn't done testing me yet. A few weeks later, I received an unexpected call. My mother's voice was shaky on the phone. Maya, it's your sister. She's in the hospital. I froze. What happened? She collapsed at home. Stress, exhaustion, her doctor said it's from overworking and not eating properly. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Despite everything she'd done, she was still my sister. I drove to the hospital that evening. When I walked into her room, she looked pale and small, nothing like the confident, golden sister I remembered. Maya, she whispered when she saw me. Her voice was weak but sincere. You didn't have to come. I know, I said softly, sitting beside her bed. But I wanted to. There was a long silence. Then, she sighed. Mark left, took the last of the money and disappeared. I thought I could fix everything if I worked harder, but I just made it worse. I didn't know how to feel. Pity, anger, relief. Maybe all of them. You always wanted to have everything, I said quietly. But happiness doesn't come from holding on to things, it comes from letting go. She gave a small, bitter laugh. You sound like Mom. I shrugged. She's usually right. Her eyes filled with tears. I ruined everything, didn't I? I looked at her, really looked at her. The sister who once seemed untouchable was finally human. You hurt me, I said. More than you'll ever understand. But you didn't ruin everything. You ruined yourself. And that's something only you can fix. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered. I was jealous of you. You were always the kind one. People loved you for who you were. I didn't know how to be that. I felt my throat tighten. I forgive you, I said finally. But I can't go back to how things were. You need to learn to love yourself before you expect it from anyone else. When I left the hospital, I cried in the car, not for her, not even for the past, but for the version of me that had carried this pain for so long. It was finally gone. Months later, things took a beautiful turn. One evening, Alexander took me to a quiet rooftop overlooking the city. Fairy lights were strung across the railing, and a small dinner table was set for two. I smiled, knowing he had planned something special, but not realizing how special. After dinner, he stood up, walked over to me, and took my hands. His voice was calm, steady, full of warmth. Maya, when I met you, I saw someone trying to rebuild herself from ashes. But you didn't just rebuild, you became fire. You've taught me what real love, patience, and strength look like. I want to be by your side, not because you need me, but because I need us. Before I could respond, he knelt down and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate ring, elegant but simple, exactly my style. Will you marry me? He asked. For a second, I couldn't speak. The tears came fast, but this time, they were pure joy. I nodded, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, I said. 1,000 times, yes. The night air was warm, and when he kissed me, I realized something profound. The universe always balances itself. It might take time, it might break you first, but eventually, it gives back tenfold. A year later, I married the man who never once doubted my worth. The one who didn't need me to be perfect, just honest. The one who helped me heal without ever trying to fix me. As I stood in front of the mirror on my wedding day, I thought about how far I'd come from being betrayed by the two people I loved most, to finding peace, forgiveness, and love stronger than I'd ever imagined. Elena didn't come to the wedding, though she sent a letter. In it, she wrote, "You were right. Happiness can't be stolen. It has to be earned. I'm trying to start over too. I hope one day, we can both be free." I smiled when I read it. Maybe we both finally understood what love was supposed to be, not about having more, but being more. As Alexander took my hand that night and led me to the dance floor, I looked around at the life I'd built, friends who felt like family, a career that fulfilled me, and a man who loved me without condition. For years, I thought Elena took everything from me. But in reality, she just cleared the path for everything better to find me. Because sometimes, life doesn't take things away to punish you. It takes them away to make room for what's meant to stay. And for the first time in a very long time, I knew I was exactly where I was meant to be.